The first thing Helena Blackwood saw was her white ceremonial coat draped over her sister's bare shoulders. The second was her husband standing beside Livia with his shirt half-buttoned. The third was the document on the council table removing Helena from her own life. For one long second, nobody moved. Rainwater still shone on Helena's dark hair. Her gloved hand remained inside the pocket of her travelling coat, curled around a small velvet box she had carried across 2 countries and 1 sleepless night. Inside that box were 2 silver air tokens, 1 for each heartbeat. She had imagined Adrian's face when she told him. 6 years of marriage, 4 years of doctors, 2 losses nobody inside Blackwood Estate had ever been allowed to mention. Then, 3 days earlier, a physician in Geneva had turned the monitor toward her and smiled. Twins. Helena had returned 2 days early because joy had made patience impossible. Now her younger sister was wearing the coat reserved for the lawful queen of the Blackwood family, and Adrian looked less like a husband caught betraying his wife than a king annoyed by a change in schedule. "You weren't supposed to return until Friday," he said. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "this is not what it looks like." Only disappointment that she had opened the door before they were ready. Helena looked at the enormous walnut table. 7 council seals glimmered beneath the chandelier. The heading was printed in black ink. Emergency Resolution of Succession. Effective immediately, Helena Vale Blackwood was stripped of ceremonial authority and removed from all governing responsibilities. Livia Vale would serve as acting queen until a permanent succession decision could be made. Every signature was real. Adrian stood at the bottom. Helena lifted her eyes to Livia. "Why are you wearing my coat?" Livia's fingers tightened around the ivory fabric. The gold crest rested over her heart as if it had always belonged there. "Helena, I never meant for you to find out this way." "Which part?" Livia swallowed. "The coat? The council vote? Or my husband?" Adrian stepped between them, not to protect Helena, but to control the room. "This is larger than an affair." The word landed harder because he said it so calmly. Helena took her hand from the velvet box but left it inside her pocket. "Then make it simple." Adrian glanced at the closed door before answering. "Your mother's bloodline still holds rights over the founding trust. Victor believes that if you ever have a child, the family could face competing claims. The council cannot allow a future succession war. So you solved that risk by replacing me with my sister. The family needed stability. Did stability require you to unbutton your shirt?" Livia flinched. Adrian did not. Helena felt something inside her go very still. She had negotiated with men who smiled while ordering ships burned. She had sat across from ministers who threatened sanctions with one hand and requested favors with the other. She knew the moment a conversation stopped being about truth and became a performance designed to exhaust the listener, she would not perform for them. "How long?" she asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. 11 months. "Did you sign my removal willingly?" "Yes." "If I had not returned today, would either of you have told me before the council announced it?" Neither answered. That silence was the final answer. Helena walked to the table. Livia stepped backward, as though she expected a slap. Adrian watched Helena's hands, perhaps expecting a weapon. She removed 3 folders from her leather portfolio. "What are those?" he asked. "The reason your ports remained open last winter." She placed the first folder over the resolution. "My personal guarantee for the Rotterdam credit line." The second followed. "My underwriting agreement for the Mediterranean corridor." Then the third. "And the insurance pledge protecting every Blackwood vessel currently at sea." For the first time, Adrian's confidence fractured. "Those belong to the family." "No. The obligations belong to the family. The guarantees belong to me." Helena uncapped her fountain pen. She signed the first withdrawal notice. Adrian moved toward her. "Do not do this because you are angry." She signed the second. "I am not angry yet." The third page waited beneath her hand. "Helena, billions could freeze before morning." She looked at him then. "You removed the woman who kept your empire solvent and called it stability. Let the council discover what that word costs," she signed. The scratch of the pen across paper was softer than a gunshot, but every person in that room understood that something had just been destroyed. Adrian reached for her wrist. Helena's gaze dropped to his hand. He stopped before touching her. "Where will you go?" "Somewhere my sister does not wear my clothes and my husband does not call betrayal policy." She turned toward the door. The velvet box shifted inside her pocket. One silver token slipped through the opening and struck the marble floor with a delicate metallic note. Helena did not hear it over the blood pounding in her ears. Livia did. She waited until the door closed, then bent and picked up the token. The Blackwood crest had been engraved on one side. Around the narrow white ribbon were two ceremonial knots. Livia went pale. One knot announced an heir. Two announced twins. Adrian was already pulling the guarantee notices toward him, calculating the damage. He did not see Livia close her fist around the token. He did not see her open an encrypted message to Victor Hale, chairman of the Blackwood Council. "Helena is carrying the heirs," she typed. Victor answered in less than 10 seconds. "Do not tell Adrian. Lock every gate." Helena did not go to the main staircase. She crossed the western gallery, entered the old chapel and pressed her mother's silver medallion into a shallow mark behind the altar. Stone shifted beneath her palm. A narrow passage opened into darkness. The escape tunnels were older than Blackwood Estate. They had been built for queens and children during wars the family no longer discussed. Helena had learned them from her mother, who had once made her walk every passage blindfolded. "A home becomes a prison the moment someone else controls every door," her mother had told her. At 16, Helena had thought the lesson cruel. At 34, she understood it had been a gift. She descended into the limestone corridor and heard alarms begin above her. Not grief, not footsteps from a husband coming to apologize. Security alarms. Adrian was sealing the estate. Helena rested one hand against the slight curve of her abdomen. "We are leaving," she whispered to the two lives inside her. "All three of us." The passage ended in a concealed archive beneath the eastern vineyard. Ruth Mercer, the Blackwood family's oldest archivist, was already waiting beside an oak desk. Ruth had served Helena's mother for 37 years. She did not ask why Helena's hair was wet or why her hands were shaking. She looked once at Helena's face, opened a steel cabinet, and removed a crimson folder sealed with black wax. "Your mother ordered me to give you this if the council ever turned against you." Helena broke the seal. The first page was a draft custody order. The language was cold and careful. Any child born to Helena Vale Blackwood would be taken into council protection immediately after birth. The mother could be detained for psychiatric evaluation if she resisted. Guardianship would then pass to the reigning king and a council-appointed female custodian. Livia's name had already been entered in the blank. Adrian's signature was not on the order. There was only an empty line reserved for it. Helena read it twice. "How long has Victor been preparing this?" "At least 9 months. Longer than Adrian's affair." The realization hurt in a different place. Livia had not merely stolen her husband. Victor had chosen Helena's replacement before there was even a child to steal, and Adrian had allowed himself to become the weapon. A secure receiver on Ruth's desk crackled. "All gates sealed," a guard reported. "King's order. Find Lady Helena before sunrise. Chairman Hale has classified her as a succession risk." Helena closed the folder. "He is not searching for his wife." Ruth's expression did not change. "No. He is searching for whatever you can take from him." Helena placed the custody order, her mother's medallion, and the remaining heir token into a waterproof satchel. She left behind her jewelry, bank cards, and the Blackwood signet Adrian had given her on their wedding day. At the maintenance exit, Ruth stopped her. "The southern roads belong to Victor. The airports belong to Adrian. There is only one border neither controls: Crow territory." For 2 generations, the Blackwoods and the Crows had divided the northern shipping routes between them. The peace between the families was not friendship. It was a carefully maintained refusal to begin a war neither side could finish. "Mikhail Crow may trade you back," Ruth warned. "Then he will have to hear the evidence before he decides." Headlights swept through the trees above them. Ruth opened the iron door. "Your mother said you would answer exactly that way." An old supply truck waited beyond the vineyard wall. Helena climbed into the rear compartment as Blackwood guards entered the woods less than 200 yards away. The truck began to move. Through a crack in the canvas, Helena saw the towers of Blackwood Estate disappear behind rain and darkness. She did not cry until she could no longer see them. At the estate, Adrian stood at the council table while emergency calls arrived one after another. The Rotterdam Bank had suspended the Blackwood credit line. 2 insurers were reviewing every active policy. A Mediterranean port authority had postponed signature of a contract Adrian had spent 3 years claiming as his greatest achievement. Victor Hale entered without knocking. He was 62, silver-haired and composed, with the patient voice of a man who had spent decades teaching powerful people to mistake his advice for their own ideas. "She planned this," Adrian said. "No," Victor replied. "She prepared for the possibility that one day you would stop deserving her trust." The answer angered Adrian because it sounded true. "Find her? Alive?" Adrian's head snapped toward him. Victor raised one hand. "She has documents, authority, and international contacts. I am asking what level of force you authorize." Adrian looked at Helena's empty chair. Hours earlier, he had believed he could remove her from power and keep her within the estate until the scandal passed. He had imagined anger, negotiation, and eventually surrender. He had never imagined the empire without her. "No one harms her," he said. "Bring her home." "As your wife or as a succession risk?" Adrian hesitated. It lasted only a second. Victor saw it. "Bring her home," Adrian repeated. That second would follow him for years. Livia watched from the doorway, the silver token hidden in her sleeve. By dawn, Helena's truck reached the River Crow. Frost covered the pines. A narrow bridge crossed black water beneath a grey morning sky. The driver stopped 20 yards from the northern checkpoint and told Helena he could go no farther. She stepped down alone. 3 black vehicles emerged from the trees before she reached the bridge. Men in dark coats formed a disciplined line. Their weapons remained visible but lowered. Mikhail Crow left the center vehicle. He was taller than Helena expected, broad-shouldered, with a scar crossing one eyebrow and no need to display the authority every man around him already recognized. His gaze moved from Helena's wet shoes to the waterproof satchel against her chest. "The Blackwood Queen crossed my border in a vegetable truck," he said. "Either the world ended last night, or someone wants me to believe it did. I am no longer the Blackwood Queen." The men searching the southern bank disagree. Helena heard engines behind her. She did not look back. "I request sanctuary under the Northern Accord." One of Mikhail's captains leaned close to him. "She is worth 3 ports if we return her." Mikhail kept his eyes on Helena. "A woman is not a port." The captain fell silent. "Sanctuary requires evidence of political danger," Mikhail said. Helena removed the draft custody order from her satchel and offered it across the space between them. "Then begin with the document authorizing my imprisonment and the seizure of 2 children who have not yet been born." Mikhail read the first page. His expression did not soften, but something in his posture changed. "You are pregnant. 21 weeks. Twins." The engines behind Helena grew louder. Mikhail handed the order to his legal advisor. "Verify every seal." Then he looked at Helena. "Until verification is complete, you are neither guest nor prisoner. You are under neutral protection." "And after?" "After, the truth decides. Not Adrian. Not me." It was the first promise anyone had made Helena in years that did not require her to become smaller in return. Mikhail's men escorted her across the bridge. Blackwood vehicles reached the southern checkpoint 30 seconds later. They stopped at the border. For 72 hours, Helena remained in a guarded residence overlooking the Crow Freight District. The doors were unlocked, but every path beyond the garden was watched. Mikhail sent a physician, a lawyer, and fresh clothes. He did not send flowers or questions about her marriage. On the second morning, Helena noticed a line of medical trucks sitting motionless beyond the window. "Why have they not left?" she asked the guard outside her room. "Customs discrepancy." "How long?" 9 days. Helena requested the manifests. The guard laughed once, then stopped when he realized she was serious. 2 hours later, Mikhail found her at the dining table, surrounded by shipping papers. "You are supposed to be resting. Children in the eastern camps are supposed to have insulin." She pushed one manifest toward him. "These trucks were delayed because the seal numbers do not match. Your customs director says the supplier made an error. He is lying. The original medicine was removed before the trucks reached the border and replaced with cheaper stock." "You learned that from 3 pages?" "From the temperature records. Insulin does not spend 6 hours outside refrigeration and arrive with perfect readings unless someone resets the monitor." Mikhail studied her. "The customs director has worked for my family for 18 years. Then he has had 18 years to learn where you do not look." He could have been insulted. Instead, he ordered an inspection. By sunset, Crow officers had found the stolen medicine in a private warehouse owned by the customs director's brother. The real shipments reached the refugee clinics before midnight. Mikhail returned to Helena's residence after the last truck departed. You exposed a man my captains trusted and saved medicine worth $4 million. What do you want? Access to your logistics records. He almost smiled. Most people would ask for money. Money cannot keep Victor Hale from finding me. Information might. Someone inside your network delayed those trucks for profit. Someone else may sell my location for the same reason. Mikhail's smile disappeared. The next morning, verification of the custody order was complete. Every seal was authentic. The council had created the power to take Helena's children before anyone knew they existed. Mikhail granted sanctuary for 1 year, renewable by Helena alone. He also gave her authority to audit Crow logistics. No hidden conditions? She asked. 1. Helena waited. If you find rot in my house, you tell me before you burn the house down. If the rot reaches the foundation, I make no promise. This time, he did smile. Across the border, the Blackwood Empire began bleeding quietly. Credit tightened. Captains blamed foreign banks. Victor blamed Helena. Livia wore the white ceremonial coat to every council meeting, but the sight of it no longer inspired obedience. It reminded the room of the woman who had negotiated every alliance now collapsing around them. Adrian spent 3 weeks tracing Helena's work. He found emergency loans she had secured without taking public credit. He found insurance disputes she had resolved before they reached his desk. He found letters from port ministers thanking her for compromises Adrian had later announced as his victories. The deeper he looked, the smaller his throne became. One night, he entered Helena's private study for the first time since her departure. Her desk was empty, except for a calendar. A circle marked the day she had returned from Geneva. Beside it, in her handwriting, were 4 words. Tell Adrian after dinner. He stared at the sentence until Livia appeared behind him. What was she going to tell me? I don't know, Livia answered too quickly. Adrian turned. What did you pick up from the floor? Her face changed. He had seen the movement that afternoon. At the time, the guarantees had mattered more. Nothing. Open your hand. That was 4 months ago. Then tell me what it was. Livia looked toward the corridor. Victor stood at the far end, unseen by Adrian. An old token, she said. One of Mother's. Helena must have carried it for luck. Where is it? I gave it to Victor for the archive. Adrian walked past her. By the time he reached Victor's office, the token had disappeared. So had the original border reports. Adrian understood that someone was lying. He did not yet understand that he was choosing not to learn how much. In Crow territory, winter settled over the river. Helena's pregnancy became impossible to hide. She worked shorter hours, slept badly, and refused every attempt to treat her as fragile. Mikhail learned to negotiate with her physician before he tried negotiating with her. 4 hours at the port, he said one morning. Not 8, 5. 4, and a car waits at the entrance. 4.5. The car waits where the workers cannot see it, agreed. Their trust formed through small arguments, neither needed to win. Mikhail never entered her rooms without permission. He never asked whether the twins were Adrian's. He knew blood did not require confirmation from a wounded woman. When Helena woke from nightmares, she sometimes found a lamp burning in the corridor and Mikhail reading reports outside her door. He never mentioned those nights in the morning. She did not mistake respect for love. Not yet. But she began to remember that safety could feel quiet. At 34 weeks, Helena inspected a restored medical port during a late winter storm. A pressure low in her abdomen stopped her halfway across the loading platform. She gripped the railing. Mikhail reached her before she fell. Helena? Another contraction bent her forward. Too early, she whispered. The Crow Medical Center was 12 minutes away. During the drive, Helena kept one hand over her abdomen and the other around her mother's medallion. She did not pray for the Blackwood dynasty. She prayed for 2 children who deserved to enter the world as people, not claims. The first baby arrived shortly after midnight. A boy, small and furious, announced himself with a cry that made Helena laugh through her tears. His sister followed 6 minutes later, silent for 1 terrible second before her own cry filled the room. Helena held them both against her chest while the surgeon spoke about incubators, oxygen, and careful observation. Eli, Helena whispered to her son. Then she touched her daughter's dark hair. Nora. Mikhail waited outside the delivery wing. He did not cross the doors until Helena asked for him. When he entered, the man who had faced armed councils without blinking stopped 3 feet from the bed as though the sight of two premature babies had removed every word he knew. "You may come closer," Helena said. He approached slowly. Nora's fingers closed around one of his. Mikhail looked at Helena. "She has a strong grip. She will need one." 23 minutes later, alarms sounded at the hospital entrance. A Blackwood convoy had arrived with lawyers, council guards, and an emergency custody order bearing Victor Hale's seal. The delegation demanded the children before their birth registration was complete. Mikhail read the order in the corridor. Anger hardened his face. His hands moved as though he meant to tear it in half. "Don't," Helena said behind him. She stood in the doorway in a hospital robe, pale from blood loss, one hand gripping the frame. Mikhail turned immediately. "You should be in bed, and that should be preserved." Helena nodded toward the order. "Copy it. Record every person who came here. Someday they will deny this happened. I want their own seals to answer them." The senior Blackwood lawyer stepped forward. "Lady Helena, these children are heirs of the dynasty. The council has first guardianship under the amended charter." "Children are not cargo," Helena said. "You do not take delivery. Refusal may be treated as instability." "Then write that I was unstable enough to remember I am their mother." Mikhail handed the order to his legal advisor instead of destroying it. "Under Crow law, no child leaves this hospital without the mother's consent or a judgment from a neutral court. You have neither." Blackwood guards shifted behind the lawyer. Crow guards filled the opposite end of the corridor. For several seconds, two empires stood one breath from war. Helena ended it. "Tell Victor Hale he made one mistake," she said. "He put his crime in writing." The delegation withdrew. Back inside the recovery room, a registrar asked what surname should appear on the birth certificates. Helena looked at Eli and Nora sleeping beneath warm hospital light. "Vale," she said. "Their name is Vale." Mikhail signed as the legal witness. Adrian's line remained empty. The custody order changed the balance between the families. Mikhail wanted to publish it immediately. Helena refused. "Victor will call it a forgery," she said. "Adrian will call it a misunderstanding, and Livia will cry in the white coat. We release evidence when it can no longer be explained away." "Then what do we do now?" Helena looked through the glass wall of the neonatal room. Eli slept beneath a blue blanket. Nora's hand rested beside her face. "We raise them. We build something Victor cannot enter, and we wait until he makes the mistake powerful men always make." "Which mistake?" "Believing silence means fear." The twins remained in the hospital for 19 days. Mikhail came every morning before council and every evening after the ports closed. He never picked up either child until Helena placed one in his arms. The first time she gave him Eli, his entire body became rigid. "Support his head," Helena said. "I am supporting everything. You look as though he is an explosive device." "Explosive devices do not yawn at me." It was the first time Helena laughed without grief waiting beneath it. When they left the hospital, she did not move into Mikhail's private wing. She chose a stone house near the river with 3 bedrooms, a small garden, and a direct road to Crow headquarters. Guards watched from beyond the trees. Inside, Helena arranged bottles, medical monitors, and legal files on the same kitchen table. Motherhood did not make the threat disappear. It gave every threat a face. For the next year, Victor tested the edges of Crow protection. Banks questioned Helena's accounts. Anonymous petitions challenged the twins' birth records. A newspaper owned through a Blackwood company suggested Helena had invented the pregnancy to secure asylum. Helena answered none of it publicly. She documented every attack. When a private investigator tried to bribe a nurse for Eli's blood sample, Helena let him believe he had succeeded. The vial he carried south contained sterile water and a tracking compound. It led Crow officers to a Blackwood-funded legal office storing draft guardianship petitions for 12 children from other allied families. The discovery proved Victor's doctrine had never been created only for Helena. He had spent years turning children into political property. Mikhail closed the office. Helena sent copies of every document to the mothers named inside. She did not ask them to support her. She gave them the truth and let anger choose its own direction. At Blackwood Estate, Adrian learned about the hospital order 7 months after the twins were born. He found it inside a report Victor had marked resolved. The words "live male infant" and "live female infant" held his eyes to the page. He read the birth date twice. Then he calculated backward to the afternoon Helena had entered the council room with rain in her hair, the calendar in her study. "Tell Adrian after dinner." Adrian went to Livia's rooms and opened every drawer until he found the empty velvet sleeve that had once held a silver heir token. She watched him from the doorway. "Where are my children?" "They are not yours." The answer was too quick, too practiced. Adrian crossed the room. "You knew." Livia lifted her chin, but fear entered her eyes. "I knew Helena would use them against us. Victor said if you learned the truth before the transition was secure, you would destroy everything we had prepared. You let me believe there were no children. You never asked the right question. That was cruel." It was also true. Adrian had searched for Helena as an asset. He had demanded her return, frozen accounts and pressured allies. He had never sent one message asking whether she was safe. He found Victor in the council chamber. "You sent men to take my children. I sent lawyers to secure lawful heirs. Without telling me they were alive." Victor remained seated. "You had just lost 6 major contracts, and half the council doubted your judgment. Grief would have made you weak." Adrian placed the hospital order on the table. "And what do you call this?" "Continuity." Adrian wanted to kill him. Instead, he looked around the chamber and counted the guards who now answered to Victor. He understood how completely his own weakness had been used against him. He also understood the price of correcting it. Exposing Victor would reveal the affair, the false succession vote and Adrian's order to detain Helena. The remaining banks would leave. Captains would challenge the throne. The Blackwood name might not survive. So Adrian did what cowards often call patience. He waited. He sent Helena one letter through a neutral lawyer. "I did not know about the twins." Her reply contained one sentence. "You knew enough about me to sign my removal, and not enough to ask if I survived it," he wrote again. The second letter came back unopened. The third was accepted by her attorney and placed into a file. Helena did not keep Adrian from the children out of revenge. She kept him away because he still sat on the throne built from the order that had threatened them. "If he wants to become safe," she told Mikhail, "he knows what he must destroy. And if destroying it costs him everything, then we will finally learn what his regret is worth." Years passed, not in a single grand transformation, but in ordinary mornings. Eli learnt to walk by holding the edge of Helena's desk while she reviewed port schedules. Nora's first word was no, delivered with such authority that Mikhail accused her of studying her mother. At 2, the twins hid biscuits in the pockets of his formal coat during a council reception. At 3, Eli asked why Mikhail had a scar over his eyebrow. Mikhail told him the truth in a version suitable for a child. He had once been too proud to listen and had paid for it. "Did you listen after?" Eli asked. "Every day." At 4, Nora woke during a thunderstorm and found Mikhail outside her room. "Are you guarding us?" "Always." She considered that, then held out her arms. He carried her back to bed. At 5, she called him Papa for the first time. Mikhail did not look at Helena. He did not want the child to see him ask permission for a word Nora had chosen herself. But later, alone in the kitchen, he stood at the sink with both hands braced against the counter. Helena touched his shoulder. "She knows who stayed," she said. Mikhail covered her hand with his. Their love did not begin with rescue. It began with permission. Helena chose him slowly. He never demanded speed. 2 years after the twins were born, they married in the river chapel with Ruth, 6 crow captains and 2 sleepy children as witnesses. Helena wore pale blue, not white. Mikhail made no claim over the Blackwood succession, and the marriage agreement stated in its first line that Helena's children belonged to no dynasty. They belonged to themselves. Under Helena's direction, the Crow logistics network changed as steadily as her family did. She installed independent audits, protected worker pensions, and separated humanitarian shipments from the private favors powerful captains once expected. Profits rose because trust became more valuable than intimidation. Mikhail gave her authority without pretending it had been his to give. When allied families praised him for reforming the network, he corrected them in public. "Helena rebuilt it," he said. "I was intelligent enough not to stand in her way." Across the river, Blackwood power weakened. Livia tried to imitate Helena's command by becoming louder. She replaced experienced port managers with loyal friends, then blamed sabotage when schedules failed. Victor covered losses with reserve funds and controlled the council through fear. Adrian remained king in name, but every year made the word emptier. He saw photographs of Eli and Nora through intelligence reports. At first, They were infants carried beneath blankets, then toddlers holding Helena's hands, then schoolchildren beside Mikhail at a winter charity drive. In one picture, Eli sat on Mikhail's shoulders while Nora held his hand. Adrian kept that photograph in a locked drawer. He had no right to it, but he could not throw it away. His regret did not make him brave. Not until the 8th year. The twins were 8 when Victor decided they had lived long enough. By then, 3 Blackwood captains had openly demanded a tribunal review of Helena's removal. Workers in 2 ports had hung white ribbons from cranes as symbols of loyalty to the absent queen. International partners had begun asking whether Eli and Nora would someday claim their mother's authority. Helena made no such claim. Victor did not care. To men like him, a child did not need to seek power to become a threat. A child only needed to exist. He summoned Livia to the old council archive after midnight. On the table lay photographs of Crow Academy, maintenance schedules, and a white folder marked Operation Heirs. Legal pressure failed, Victor said. The tribunal will open the succession question before winter. Livia stared at a photograph of Nora laughing beside a fountain. For an instant, she saw the baby Helena had once promised she would let her spoil. She remembered childhood nights when Helena had braided her hair and taken blame for broken things Livia had destroyed. Then she saw the white coat in her own wardrobe and imagined it being removed. "What are you asking me to approve?" "A transfer. The children will be collected and held until the tribunal concludes." "And if Crow security resists?" Victor slid a second page toward her. The language did not use the word kill. It did not need to. Livia's hand shook as she signed the encrypted authorization. "This protects the family," she whispered. Victor took the page. "That is what history will say." Adrian heard enough from the corridor to understand. For years, he had told himself he was gathering strength. He had hidden copies of Victor's accounts, recorded council orders, and waited for a moment when speaking would not destroy the Blackwood Empire. Now 2 children were scheduled to pay for his patience. He entered the archive after Victor and Livia left. The white folder was gone, but an impression remained on the blotter beneath it. Adrian shaded the paper with a pencil and read 3 words. Crow Academy. Tomorrow. 10. He called Helena for the first time in 8 years. She answered because the secure number belonged to a line used only for emergencies. Neither spoke at first. Adrian heard children's voices in the background. His children. "Victor is moving against the school," he said. "Tomorrow at 10. Possibly earlier." Helena's voice became cold. "How long have you known?" He looked at the clock. 4 minutes. "Then make those 4 minutes useful. Send every access code, vehicle description, and name connected to the plan. Helena. Do not say you are sorry while my children are in danger. Work." The line ended. Adrian opened the intelligence vault and transmitted everything he had collected for 8 years. Not only the school plans, Victor's accounts, council recordings, orders bearing Livia's signature, copies of the draft custody directive, evidence that implicated Adrian himself. When the upload finished, he removed the Blackwood signet from his hand and placed it on the desk. Then he waited for Victor's guards. At 8:12 the next morning, Helena and Mikhail stood inside Crow Academy with the headmistress. Closing the school would warn the attackers that their plan had been exposed. Removing only Eli and Nora would leave hundreds of other children in danger. Helena refused both choices. "We evacuate everyone through the winter drill," she said. "A gas leak in the west building. No panic, no visible security surge." Mikhail studied the map Adrian had sent. "The maintenance vans enter through the eastern gate at 9:40. Then we let the first van cross the camera line. We need the men, their equipment, and their orders. Victor has escaped behind denials for 8 years. Today he leaves fingerprints. Helena, Eli, and Nora cannot remain here as bait. They won't. No child will." She touched the small radio at her collar. "But Victor must believe they are here until every classroom is empty." At 9:05, teachers told students a gas line required an orderly relocation to the athletic center beyond the North Gardens. Children complained about leaving books and unfinished lessons. That ordinary irritation was the sound of a plan working. Eli noticed men in grey maintenance uniforms near the Eastern Hall. Their badges carried the old crow crest, replaced 3 years earlier. He reached for Nora's hand. "Those are wrong." Nora looked once and remembered the rule Helena had repeated since they were old enough to understand danger. Do not be brave for an audience. Be useful to the person beside you. She saw a 6-year-old girl standing alone outside the music room, crying because her class had already turned the corner. Nora pulled Eli toward her. We take Maisie. The first maintenance van crossed the eastern gate at 9:18, 22 minutes early. Mikhail swore softly into his radio. They changed the time. No, Helena said, watching the security screen. Victor gave Adrian the wrong time because he suspected him. The men inside the school stopped, pretending to inspect pipes. One reached beneath his coat. Move now, Helena ordered. Lockdown doors descended through the eastern wing. Crow officers sealed the vehicle gate behind the second van. The third accelerated away before entering, but Adrian's transmitted tracker code allowed Northern Police to intercept it at the river road. Inside, Eli pulled Maisie and Nora into the science room and pressed the emergency lock. The reinforced door closed as one attacker reached the hall. He struck it once, realized it would not open, and ran toward the north stairs. Nora knelt beside Maisie. My mother is coming, she said. It was not hope. It was certainty. Helena reached the science corridor with 2 Crow officers. Smoke from a disabled electrical panel blurred the far end. Mikhail's voice came through her radio. 3 contained at the east gate, 2 moving toward you. The children? Thermal scan confirms 3 in the science room. Helena pressed her hand to the steel door. Ellie? Nora? Mama? Nora's voice answered through the intercom. Helena closed her eyes for half a heartbeat. Stay where you are. You did exactly right. One of the attackers appeared at the far end of the corridor. He saw Helena and lifted his weapon. The Crow officers moved first. A shot struck the wall above Helena. The man went down, wounded in the shoulder, his weapon sliding across the floor. The second attacker tried to escape through the library courtyard and found Mikhail waiting with the tactical team. The entire operation ended in 11 minutes. No child died. 2 guards were injured. Every attacker was captured alive. Helena did not leave the science door until Eli, Nora, and Maisie were safely behind her. Nora threw herself into Helena's arms. Eli tried to remain composed until Mikhail knelt in front of him. You saw the wrong crest, Mikhail said. Eli nodded. And you stayed with your sister. She went back for Maisie. Mikhail looked at Nora. Of course she did. Then both children reached for him, and he held them while Helena placed one hand over all 3. In the eastern gatehouse, investigators opened the lead attacker's case. Inside were school maps, forged medical transport orders, and the silver air token Helena had dropped 8 years earlier. 2 knots remained tied around its white ribbon. Victor had sent it as proof of identity. The mercenaries had been ordered to return the token only after confirming that both children were in custody or dead. Helena stared at the object inside the evidence bag. Livia had picked it up while Helena walked away. Her sister had hidden the pregnancy. Now she had used the announcement of 2 lives as authorization to end them. For the first time since the council room, Helena allowed herself to feel anger without controlling its shape. Mikhail stood beside her. Tell me what you need. Not war. I know. I need every person who signed this to speak where the world can hear them. By nightfall, Adrian's evidence had been verified. His recordings connected Victor to the custody order, the campaign against Helena and Operation Airs. Livia's encrypted signature appeared on the final authorization. Adrian had included a statement accepting responsibility for his own orders. At the end, he spoke directly to Helena. I waited because I wanted to expose Victor without losing the throne. That means I chose the throne every day I waited. Use this evidence against all of us, including me. Helena replayed the final sentence once. Then she closed the file. Is that remorse? Mikhail asked. It is evidence. I will decide what else it is after it costs him something. The next morning, Ruth Mercer arrived carrying a cedar case and the missing half of Helena's silver medallion. Your mother believed Victor had altered the family charter, Ruth said. She spent years looking for the original. She found it before she died, but she could not expose it safely. The 2 halves of the medallion joined into a single key. It opened the cedar case. Inside lay the original Blackwood charter and a handwritten appointment naming Helena's mother as its lawful keeper. The office was not a crown. It was an independent duty created to protect spouses, children, and workers whenever the ruling council abused succession law. The final line transferred that duty to Helena. The charter did not contain a magical punishment for adultery. It did not need one. It stated something far more dangerous to Victor. No council could seize a child without the mother's consent and an independent hearing. No ruler could remove a lawful consort through secret resolution. And when credible evidence showed the ruling family had used force against an heir, the keeper could suspend the council and summon the tribunal of 9 families. Helena held the old pages in hands that did not shake. For 8 years, Victor had used forged amendments to make cruelty look like law. Now his own attack had activated the authority he tried to erase. "If you invoke the charter," Ruth said, "you must return to Blackwood territory for the tribunal." Mikhail's expression hardened. "Then the tribunal comes north." "It cannot," Helena said. She looked through the window. Ellie and Nora sat together on the terrace, close enough that their shoulders touched. 2 crow guards remained nearby, but the children were laughing again. Victor had tried to turn their existence into a battlefield. Helena would not spend the rest of their childhood hiding from one. "I am going back," she said, "not to reclaim the coat, to make certain no woman ever has to escape through those tunnels carrying her children again." The tribunal of 9 families convened 11 days later. Blackwood Estate looked unchanged when Helena's convoy crossed the iron gates. The same towers rose above the vineyards. The same stone road curved toward the marble entrance. Guards straightened at the sight of Mikhail's vehicles, but their eyes followed Helena. 8 years earlier, she had left hidden beneath sacks in a supply truck. Now she returned in daylight, carrying the authority Victor had spent half his life trying to bury. Eli and Nora remained at a protected Crow residence with people they trusted. Victor's lawyers had demanded their presence as living evidence of succession. Helena refused. "My children have already survived your argument," she wrote. "They will not be placed in a chamber so adults can discuss who owns them." The tribunal accepted her decision. Mikhail stepped from the vehicle first, then offered Helena his hand. She did not need help standing. She took it anyway. At the entrance to the council wing, a young Blackwood guard lowered his voice. "Lady Helena, there are still people here who remember what you did for us." "Then remember what happens next," she said. "No family should depend on one good person surviving a room full of bad rules." Inside, the white ceremonial coat hung behind the central throne. Livia wore it. She stood beside Victor with her chin lifted, but the fabric no longer fit her confidence. Adrian was absent. Victor's men had detained him after discovering the transfer of evidence. Neutral tribunal guards now held him in a secure chamber until called. Representatives of 9 allied families occupied the circular rows. Independent judges sat beneath the founding crest. Ruth placed the cedar case on the evidence table. Helena entered in a simple dark blue suit. Whispers moved through the room. Livia looked at her clothes and managed a brittle smile. "You were invited as keeper. You could at least have dressed for the office." Helena's gaze moved to the coat. "I did." The presiding judge struck the table once. The room fell silent. Victor challenged the charter before the first page could be read. He called it an artifact without modern authority, then claimed Helena's mother had fabricated the keeper appointment. Ruth answered with independent records preserved by 3 families. Experts verified the ink, seals, and chain of custody. Helena did not bury the room beneath technical detail. She reduced the case to 3 facts. The true charter forbids secret removal of a lawful consort. The resolution bearing Adrian's and Livia's signatures appeared on the screen. It forbids seizure of a child without the mother's consent and a neutral hearing. The hospital custody order appeared beside it. And it suspends any council that uses force against an heir. The school maps, payment authorizations, and Livia's signature filled the final screen. Victor did all 3. The simplicity of it left no place for him to hide. Victor rose. "I preserved the Blackwood line while this woman abandoned it. She removed financial support during a crisis, fled to our oldest rival, and raised lawful heirs beneath another man's name. Every decision I made prevented civil war." "You sent armed men into a school," Helena said, "to recover children used as political leverage." The word entered the chamber and stopped Helena's breath for half a second. Leverage. She had not heard Adrian use it in the strategy room 8 years earlier, but it had lived beneath every choice made that day. She looked at Victor. "My children were eating breakfast when your men entered their school. Tell this tribunal what part of breakfast threatened an empire." Victor's expression tightened. Their blood did. The answer did more damage than any argument Helena could have made. Several family representatives looked away from him in disgust. The chief judge turned to Livia. "Did you authorize Operation Heirs?" "I authorized protective transfer." Victor controlled the wording. "Your signature appears beneath the provision allowing lethal force. I was told it would be used only if Crow soldiers attacked." Helena stood. "Nora was 8. Eli was 8. Which one looked like a soldier in the photographs you signed?" Livia's eyes flashed. "You always do this." The judges watched her. "Do what?" Helena asked. "Stand there so calm while everyone decides you are better. The perfect daughter. The brilliant negotiator. The queen who never raised her voice. Even after you left, every failed contract became proof that I was not you. Every captain compared us. Every room waited for you to return. I did not ask you to become me. You never had to ask. You took all the space before I entered it." For a moment, Helena saw the younger sister who used to crawl into her bed during storms. The girl Helena had protected from their father's temper. The woman she had planned to trust with her children. Then she saw the school photographs beneath Livia's signature. "You were never my shadow," Helena said. "You were my sister. You became my replacement only when you decided my life was the price of your importance." Livia's composure cracked. "Adrian chose me." "No. Adrian betrayed me. Those are not the same, Victory." The white coat seemed to grow heavier on Livia's shoulders. Ruth opened the cedar case. The original charter was displayed beside the amended version Victor had used for decades. There were fewer differences than the room expected. A sentence removed here, a phrase inserted there. The most dangerous lies had been built from small changes repeated until nobody remembered the truth. The forged version gave the council first claim over children. The original protected the mother's guardianship. The forged version allowed emergency succession by private vote. The original required public cause and independent review. The forged version erased the keeper completely. Victor watched his life's work collapse one line at a time. "Documents do not govern families," he said. "Power does." "For a long time," Helena replied, "you had both because nobody forced them to disagree. Today they do." The tribunal called Adrian. He entered without his signet ring, escorted by 2 neutral guards. 8 years had placed grey at his temples and removed the certainty Helena once mistook for strength. His eyes found her first. Then they moved to Mikhail beside her. There was pain in Adrian's face, but no surprise. He had spent years looking at photographs of the life another man had earned. The chief judge informed him that his testimony could be used in criminal proceedings. "I understand. Did Victor Hale force you to begin a relationship with Livia Vale?" "No." "Did he force you to sign Helena's removal?" "No." "Did you order Blackwood security to detain Helena after she left the council room?" Adrian looked at Helena. "Yes." Victor's lawyer stood. The order specified that she was not to be harmed. Adrian turned toward him. "Sit down." The lawyer hesitated, then obeyed the voice of a king who had finally used command against the right person too late. Adrian faced the judges again. "I told myself I wanted her brought home safely. But when Victor asked whether she was my wife or a succession risk, I hesitated. That hesitation gave him permission to treat her as the second." Helena had not known anyone else heard that question. Victor remained still. Adrian continued. "I learned the twins were alive 7 months after their birth. I found the hospital order and confronted Victor. By then he controlled most of the council and security. I had evidence of fraud, but exposing him would have exposed me too. So I collected records and waited for a safer moment." "For 8 years?" the judge asked. "Yes." "Why did you finally release them?" "Because the cost of my waiting entered a school." The judge glanced toward Helena. "Do you wish to question him?" Helena rose. She did not ask whether Adrian had loved Livia. Love would not change a signature. She asked only what mattered. "How long were you sleeping with my sister before I came home?" 11 months. "When you signed my removal, did you know Victor considered any future child of mine a threat?" "Yes." "I did not know about the custody order, but I knew he wanted to prevent your bloodline from controlling succession." Helena held his gaze. "When you learned Eli and Nora were alive, did you understand that remaining king helped Victor keep hunting them?" Adrian's voice dropped. "Yes." The answer settled between them. This was the real betrayal. Not the half-buttoned shirt. Not even the white coat. For 8 years after learning the truth, Adrian had remained on the throne because surrendering it would have made his regret expensive. Helena placed the recovered heir token on the table. Victor called them leverage. What did you call them while you waited? Adrian looked at the two knots. His face broke in a way Helena once would have rushed to forgive. She did not move. The price, he said. I called them the price I would recover when I had enough power. Children are not a price. I know. You know now. Yes. He did not ask for mercy. That was the first respectful thing he had given her since the day she left. Mikhail was called next. Victor's lawyer tried to portray Helena's sanctuary as a crow plot to capture Blackwood trade. Mikhail answered every question with records. Helena had paid taxes on her income. The twins' trust accepted no crow claim. His marriage agreement waived all succession rights. Every port reform had been reviewed independently. Why protect a rival's wife? The lawyer asked. Mikhail looked at Helena before answering. Because she asked for lawful sanctuary and proved the danger. You gained a queen? No. I met a woman whose own family treated her competence as property. Loving her did not make it mine. The tribunal recessed for 2 hours. During the break, Helena entered the old strategy room alone. The table had been polished. The guarantee notices were gone. The place where the silver token had struck the floor showed no mark. Livia stood at the window behind her. Neutral guards waited outside the open door. They are going to imprison me, Livia said. Yes? You could ask for exile. You authorized armed men to take my children. Victor manipulated me. He manipulated your envy. He did not create it. Livia touched the sleeve of the white coat. Did you ever love Adrian? Helena considered the question. I loved who I believed he chose to be. And Mikhail? I love what he chooses every day. Livia looked down. I hated you for making everything look easy. It was never easy. You simply benefited from the parts I carried quietly. Is there anything I can say? There was. 8 years ago, before you picked up that token, you could have called my name. The judges returned before sunset. Victor Hale was found responsible for forging the governing charter, unlawful detention orders, conspiracy, financial coercion, and the attempted abduction and murder of children. His authority was permanently revoked. He would stand trial before a neutral criminal court, with detention imposed immediately. As guards approached, Victor looked toward Adrian. I made you a king. Adrian did not answer. Helena did. You made him useful to you. He confused that with being powerful. Victor was led from the chamber. Livia's appointment as queen was declared void from the moment it was signed. Because the school authorization went beyond a succession dispute, the tribunal denied exile and transferred her to criminal custody. The chief judge ordered her to surrender every symbol taken through the secret resolution. Livia removed the white coat. For one terrible moment, she held it toward Helena. The room expected Helena to put it on. She did not touch it. Return it to the archive, she said. Ruth folded the coat and placed it in the cedar case beside the forged charter. It would remain there, not as a symbol of a queen waiting to return, but as evidence of what happened when a family confused clothing with authority. Adrian was stripped of the Blackwood throne and all guardianship claims. The tribunal referred his detention orders, obstruction, and financial conduct to neutral prosecutors. His cooperation would be considered, but it would not erase 8 years of silence. He removed nothing because he had already surrendered the ring. The chief judge turned to Helena. As lawful keeper, you may assume temporary control of every Blackwood company, trust, and territory until Eli and Nora reach adulthood. Whispers spread through the chamber. This was the ending everyone expected. The betrayed queen would take the empire. Helena closed the charter. No. Even Mikhail looked at her, though not with surprise. The workers did not betray me, Helena said. The families who depend on those ports did not sign the school order. I will not destroy their lives to prove I can sit in Adrian's chair. She presented a plan already reviewed by the independent auditors. Blackwood businesses would pass to a stewardship board with worker representatives, neutral trustees, and elected port leaders. Family members could hold office only after public review. The child seizure doctrine would be abolished. Every mother targeted under Victor's forged rules would receive restitution and full custody protection. Eli and Nora's lawful inheritance would be held in independent trusts they could accept or reject at 25. They will grow up knowing power is an option, Helena said, not an obligation written in their blood. The 9 families approved the plan unanimously. The Blackwood throne was removed from the chamber before midnight. Adrian received a sentence of 42 months after pleading guilty and providing evidence against Victor's network. He surrendered his private fortune to the restitution fund and signed every guardianship waiver Helena's attorneys placed before him. He did not ask her to wait. He wrote to Eli and Nora once each month. The letters contained no excuses and no requests to be called father. He described the work he performed in the prison library, answered questions the children sent through their counselor, and ended every letter with the same promise: I will respect whatever you choose. For 2 years, they chose silence. Helena did not force an answer. Mikhail did not insult Adrian or compete with a man who had already lost. When Eli asked why their biological father had betrayed Helena, Mikhail said, because some people protect the thing that makes them important before they protect the people they love. Can people change? Nora asked. Yes, Helena answered. But change does not create a debt. You never owe someone access to you because they became better after hurting you. The children understood as much as children could. They returned to school. Eli designed a safer classroom lock for the science fair. Nora started a program pairing older students with frightened new arrivals. Their fear did not vanish, but it became one part of their lives instead of the shape of everything. Adrian was released 3 years and 6 months after the tribunal. He did not go to Blackwood Estate. It had become an administrative college and public archive under the stewardship board. The old strategy room was used to teach young leaders how secret power corrupted good law. Adrian rented a small house beyond the Southern River and continued working for the Restitution Foundation under supervision. 6 months passed before Nora asked to meet him. Eli agreed on one condition: Mikhail had to be there. The meeting was arranged for 10 on a Friday morning beside the River Crow. Adrian arrived at 9:20. He wore no signet, no tailored guard detail, and no Blackwood crest. In his hands was a wooden sailboat he had built in the prison workshop. It was imperfect. One side had been sanded more smoothly than the other. Helena and Mikhail watched him from a distance before the children approached. You were supposed to be here at 10, Helena said. The first words Adrian had spoken to her 8 years earlier returned between them. You weren't supposed to return until Friday. He understood the callback. I know, he said. I did not want them to wonder if I would come. Helena looked at the man she had once loved. She did not hate him. Hatred would have required carrying him every day, and she had put down that weight years ago. This is not forgiveness, she said. It is one meeting the children requested. You do not ask them for a name, a promise, or another visit. I understand. Mikhail is their father. Pain crossed Adrian's face. He accepted it. I know. Eli and Nora stopped a few feet away. At 12, they carried pieces of both the children Adrian had missed and the people they were becoming without him. Adrian did not reach for them. Hello, Eli? Hello, Nora? Nora looked at the wooden boat. Did you make that? Yes. Does it float? I was hoping you would help me find out. She glanced at Helena. Helena nodded once. They all walked to the riverbank. Mikhail remained beside Helena, close enough to protect, far enough to let the children choose the conversation. Adrian knelt and placed the boat on the water. It tipped sharply to one side. Eli caught it before the current carried it away. The weight is wrong, he said. Can it be fixed? Adrian asked. Eli examined the hull. Probably, but you have to take it apart. Adrian looked at his son. Then that is what we will do. Nora sat on the grass between them and opened the small tool kit Mikhail had brought. She did not call Adrian father. She did not move away either. Helena felt Mikhail's hand close gently around hers. Behind them, no throne waited. No white coat moved in the wind. No council had the power to decide what the children would call the men in their lives. A crown had been stolen from Helena in a single afternoon. A family had been built by the people who kept arriving.